Tributes are being paid this morning to the Friends actor Matthew Perry, who has died at the age of 54.
The star who played Chandler Bing in the globally successful sitcom, which was one of the biggest shows of the 90s and noughties, was found dead in his Los Angeles home, with US media reports saying he was found in the hot tub.
US media reported that the actor was found dead in his hot tub, that a man in his 50s was unresponsive in a water emergency at the actor's home.
There's a kind of silence that doesn't belong to the world of the living. It's the silence of a warm Los Angeles afternoon, where the sun is high, the sky is endlessly blue, and yet, everything feels strangely still. No noise, no movement, no sound of life. Just the quiet surface of the water in a private backyard pool. And somewhere beneath that quiet surface, Matthew Perry was gone. October 28, 2023. It should have been just another ordinary day. It should have been just another moment in a life that had been fought for, broken for, prayed for, and survived for decades. He had spent years trying to stay alive, and yet, on this day, the world lost him to the very thing he feared most, being alone. The official reports said, found unresponsive in a hot tub. But that sentence doesn't explain a life. That sentence doesn't explain the battles he fought inside his own skin. That sentence doesn't explain why someone who made the entire world laugh couldn't save himself from drowning in his own silence. When the news broke, it didn't feel like the world lost a celebrity. It felt like we lost a friend. Because that's who he was. To millions of strangers, in households across the globe, to people who only knew him through a television screen, Matthew Perry wasn't a character. He was comfort. He was laughter when the world was heavy. He was the man who made awkwardness charming, sadness funny, and loneliness bearable. He was Chandler Bing. But here's the truth. The world laughed at a character, but they never truly knew the man. And the man was breaking long before the pool, long before the silence, long before his final day. This isn't a story about fame or success.
I'm a drug addict. I'm a person that if I have a drink, I can't stop.
It's not even just a story about addiction. This is a story about a soul that tried to live in a world that didn't know how to hold him. So now, we go back, not to the show, not to the fame, not to the applause. We go back to the beginning, where the laughter hadn't yet been invented, and where the pain began. Matthew Perry was born in Williamstown, Massachusetts, but he didn't stay there long. His parents separated before he even had a chance to understand what a family was supposed to feel like. His father left, his mother moved to Canada for work, and Matthew became a child who belonged to airports, suitcases, and unfamiliar houses. He was never rooted, never held in one place, never secure. He grew up learning one lesson very early. People leave, and when a child learns that too soon, something inside them never fully grows. His mother was loving, yes, but always working, always moving, always busy. He was surrounded by adults, but never truly seen. So Matthew learned how to earn attention. He learned to perform, to entertain, to be funny. Because being funny was the only way he felt visible. He once said, "If someone laughed, I felt loved. If someone didn't, I felt like I didn't exist." Let that sink in. Laughter wasn't a joke to him. It was survival. School wasn't easy. He was restless, unsettled, searching for a place to fit. He tried tennis and he was good. So good that by age 13, he was one of the best junior players in Canada. But excellence can't replace meaning. He played not because he loved it, but because he was running from the emptiness inside. The tennis court was a battleground between the boy he was and the confident, charming, controlled boy he wanted the world to see. But inside, he was drowning. And when he realized tennis couldn't save him, he let it go. So he turned to acting. Not because he wanted to be famous, but because acting was the closest thing to being wanted. If someone watches you, you exist. If they clap, you matter. If they laugh, you are loved. That was Matthew's psychology. It wasn't about ego or ambition. It was desperation. He moved to Los Angeles as a teenager with no stability, no certainty, no emotional grounding, just hope. And hope can be a dangerous drug for someone already addicted to the feeling of being seen. He auditioned, he waited, he failed, he tried again. And slowly, he began appearing in small roles. But success didn't comfort him. Because the more he appeared on screen, the more he feared disappearing again. Fame wasn't the dream, it was the shield. A defense against being abandoned. And then, Friends happened. It wasn't supposed to change the world. It was just another sitcom script. 6 characters in New York City. He almost missed the audition because of another project, but fate is a strange writer. He got the role, and Matthew Perry became Chandler Bing. The world fell in love with him. But pay attention here. The world loved Chandler, not Matthew, and Matthew knew that. He knew it every single day. Every time the cameras stopped rolling, and the laughter died, and the studio lights went out, he would go home to the same silence he had always lived in, the same silence he would die in. During season 3 of Friends, something happened. A jet ski accident, a doctor, a bottle of painkillers, and suddenly, the silence went away. The emptiness dulled. The loneliness softened. The anxiety quieted. He felt okay. Not happy, not healed, just okay. And for someone who had spent his entire life drowning inside himself, okay felt like paradise. But painkillers are not paradise. They are a warm hand that eventually closes into a fist. And once addiction held him, it never let go. You can feel it, can't you? The shift, the boy who laughed to be loved, had now found a chemical way to keep the pain silent. This is where the real tragedy begins. Painkillers don't announce themselves as an enemy. They arrive quietly, soft, warm, reassuring. They say, "It's okay. I've got you. You don't have to feel this anymore." And for Matthew Perry, that was a dangerous promise, because he had been running from his feelings his entire life. First through humor, then attention, then success. But painkillers whispered something different. You don't even need those. Just stay with me. Stay numb. He started with 1 pill, then 2, then 5. Soon, his body was no longer asking, it was demanding. What began as pain management slowly twisted into survival management. Because without the pills, his mind would collapse into the darkness he had been avoiding since childhood. And that darkness was terrifying. The strange thing about addiction is that the world sees everything except the pain. During Friends millions watched him every week. They noticed the jokes, the timing, the sarcasm, the charm. But they didn't notice the swollen eyes, the shaking hands, the sudden weight changes, the hollow look behind his smile. Years later, Matthew said, between season 3 and season 6, "I don't remember filming most of it." Imagine that. One of the most celebrated comedic performances in television history, and the actor behind it wasn't fully present to experience it. He was there, but not there. He was acting on top of an internal war so brutal, you could almost hear the screams behind the laugh track if you listened closely enough. But nobody listened. Because the world loved Chandler Bing, not Matthew Perry. And Matthew understood that better than anyone. Season to season, his body began to reveal what his soul was trying to hide. There were moments he appeared thin, not the normal thinness of an actor under pressure, but the thinness of someone being consumed from the inside. Then suddenly, he would appear heavier, not the normal softness of comfort eating, but the swelling of medication, alcohol, and metabolic collapse. Fans noticed. They made jokes, memes, and comments. He looks different. What happened to him? But jokes are easier than compassion, and curiosity is easier than empathy. So the world kept laughing, and Matthew kept dying. Slowly, quietly, internally. The first rehab was not the last. Not the second. Not the 10th. He went in and out more times than he could count. Each time, he wanted to stop. Not for society, not for the fans, but because he did not want to die. He fought addiction like a soldier in a war no one else believes is real. He would get clean, his eyes would clear, his energy would return. He'd feel hope and think, this time, maybe this time, I can live. But addiction is patient. It waits silently in the nervous system, in the memory of relief. And then, one night, one moment, one slip, one pill, and the cycle would begin again. Shame, withdrawal, isolation, collapse, recovery, hope, relapse, repeat, for decades. Friends, ended. The cast moved on. But the laughter Matthew provided was immortal, and immortality is a curse when the person behind it is still human. People would approach him everywhere, not to know him, but to remind him, "You are Chandler Bing." But he wasn't. He was a man in pain. He said, "I didn't want to be remembered as Chandler. I wanted to be remembered for helping people." There's something deeply heartbreaking about that sentence. His entire life was spent trying to earn love, but when the world finally gave it to him, it was for the mask, not the man. He tried to love and be loved, but how can you love another when you're drowning inside yourself? His relationships were brief, fragile, heavy. He would pull people close, then push them away, not out of cruelty, but out of fear. Fear of being seen, of being abandoned again, of being loved and losing it. He once said, "I didn't feel like I deserved to be loved, so I ruined everything before it could hurt me." In 2018, his colon burst from years of addiction. Doctors gave him a 2% chance to live. He fell into a coma, and somehow, he survived. When he woke up, he was different. Not healed, but aware. He realized he had been given life one more time, and now he wanted to help. Matthew spent his last years talking openly about addiction, not with shame, but with honesty. He created support programs and funded recovery centers. He said, "When I die, I don't want friends to be the first thing people think of. I want helping others to be the first thing." But when he died, the headlines said, "Chandler Bing has died," as if Matthew Perry never existed. His final day was peaceful. No drugs, no alcohol. He was sober, trying. He had been swimming, a new hobby he loved because the water made him feel weightless. He went into his hot tub. The water was warm, the air quiet, but the heart that had carried too much was tired. And like all tired hearts, it simply stopped. No drama, no spectacle, just silence. The same silence he had spent his life trying to escape. When the news first broke, it didn't feel real. Celebrities pass away. Fame fades. Time, eventually, forgets even the most recognizable faces. But this was different. This was Chandler, the man whose jokes could mend a broken evening. The familiar voice that filled living rooms while families ate dinner. The character that made loneliness feel a little less lonely. Social media didn't just react with shock. It reacted with a profound sense of heartbreak. The world wasn't saying, "We lost an actor." The world was saying, "We lost someone who was part of our lives." And that, right there, is incredibly rare. Because the connection we felt was never about the glitter of fame. It was about comfort. Matthew Perry wasn't loved because he was a star. He was loved because he was familiar. He made sadness feel survivable. He made awkwardness feel charming. He made the world feel like maybe, just maybe, it was okay to be flawed. And now, we all had to face a difficult truth. The man who made millions feel safe wasn't safe himself. In the aftermath, people didn't quite know what to say. There were no grand statements, no elaborate poetic tributes needed. Instead, people went back to the one place they always did when life felt heavy. They pressed play on *friends*. But this time, something was different. The laughter sounded ... hollow. The jokes echoed with a new weight. Every sarcastic punchline, every comically timed gesture, every awkward facial expression, it all felt like a memory of a ghost, trying desperately to make sure we were still smiling. People weren't rewatching *friends* just to remember him. They were rewatching it to feel close to him again. It was a silent way of saying, "Thank you for staying with us all those years, even while you were hurting." For the cast members who stood beside him for a decade, this loss wasn't a public event. It was deeply personal. They knew about the battles the world never saw. They understood the struggle that happened behind the stage doors. They could tell when his smile was genuine and when it was a mask for survival. Jennifer Aniston once said, "We always felt like we were protecting him. But you can't save someone from a fire that burns inside them. You can only love them while they try to save themselves." And they did love him. Immensely. But love isn't a cure. It can't rewire years of pain or silence the grip of addiction. Love can hold a hand, but it can't heal a lifetime of loneliness. And Matthew had been wrestling with that loneliness long before they ever met. There's a unique kind of grief that comes with losing someone you never personally knew, but who somehow shaped who you became. The world's sorrow over Matthew's death wasn't about celebrity worship. It was about every single person who, feeling alone one night, turned on a rerun just to feel okay. It was about the teenager who learned humor from Chandler and used it to survive high school. It was for every person who ever felt invisible until they saw someone just as awkward and anxious as them. Be loved for it. His character wasn't just comedy. It was permission. Permission to be imperfect, to be insecure, to be emotionally messy, and still be worthy of love. So when the world cried, it wasn't for a distant star. It was for the part of themselves that Matthew had reached and comforted. Now, after all the headlines and tributes have faded, there's a quiet truth that remains. Matthew Perry spent his entire life trying to be okay. Not happy, not extraordinary, not flawless, just ... okay. And sometimes, that's the hardest battle of all. His story isn't just about addiction. It's about a deep, persistent pain that never found a place to rest. It's about a world that fell in love with the performance, but never quite figured out how to reach the person behind it. And yet, there is something profoundly beautiful in all of this. Even in his suffering, even in his loneliness, even while he was breaking, Matthew still made the world a warmer place. He gave a comfort he couldn't find for himself. He made millions of people feel less alone, even while he was drowning in his own silence.
When I die, I don't want friends to be the first thing that's mentioned. I want that to be the first thing that's mentioned.
Matthew Perry did not begin life in Hollywood glamour. He began it in separation. He was just a baby when his parents' marriage dissolved. His father, a charismatic actor, moved to Los Angeles. His mother, a sharp and dedicated woman, stayed in Canada, working long hours to build a stable life. Matthew grew up caught between two worlds, one of glittering possibility and one of quiet, practical survival. But more importantly, he grew up without a center. Childhood for Matthew was not defined by abuse, loud fights, or dramatic trauma. It was defined by absence. An empty chair at dinner, a father's voice heard only through a phone line that always felt too far away, a mother always tired, always working, always worried. Matthew learned something devastating, long before he understood the meaning of it. If you want love, you must earn it. This belief would follow him into every room he ever entered, even when he was surrounded by millions of fans. He was funny, painfully funny. Comedy was his survival instinct. If he could make you laugh, then maybe, just maybe, you'd stay. And so the boy became the entertainer, not on a stage, not on a screen, but in hallways, at school, in front of new friends, at every dinner table. He crafted his identity like armor. I will make you laugh. So you don't see that I'm lonely. But loneliness is clever. It hides inside applause. It hides inside smiles. It hides inside the loudest laughter. Matthew carried laughter like a shield. Yet every night, when the lights of the house dimmed and the jokes ran out, the silence returned. And in that silence lived a question he could never escape. Why wasn't I enough to stay for? Before he ever acted, Matthew wanted something else. Victory, something that could not leave him. He dove into tennis like a man starving for purpose. Hours of practice, early mornings, late nights, swing after swing, sweat dripping into the dust of the court. He became good, very good, top-ranked junior in Canada. But tennis is a lonely sport. No teammates, no shared burden, just you and every mistake you've ever made. Pressure built, expectations stacked, and slowly, tennis became another stage where failure meant unlove. When he began to lose, even just slightly, the world felt like it was closing in. The racket began to feel heavy. The joy disappeared. He wasn't chasing a dream anymore. He was running from a fear. If I failed, I disappeared. So the day he walked away from tennis was not rebellion. It was exhaustion. But quitting left a hole, a deep one that later, drugs and alcohol would walk straight into. Asterisk, when Matthew finally moved to live with his father in Los Angeles, he thought, this is it. This is where I find where I belong. But Los Angeles has a cruel way of testing dreamers. He was stiff, awkward, trying too hard, cracked by years of silent longing. He did not enter Hollywood confidently. He entered it hungry, hungry to be seen, hungry to be loved, hungry to finally silence the voice inside that whispered, "You are not enough." Acting auditions were not about jobs. They were about worth. And Matthew poured everything into them. Every joke, every expression, every ounce of timing. He wasn't trying to entertain. He was trying not to disappear. And then, a script crossed his hands. A show about 6 friends. A show no one expected to matter. A show he read and felt something click inside him like destiny. Friends. But we do not go there yet. Because before the laughter that the world remembers, there was a wound the world never saw. And that wound will explain everything that comes later. The addiction, the collapse, the fame that felt like drowning, the loneliness inside global adoration, the silent bedroom at the end. Everything begins here, with a boy who learned that love leaves. Say continue, and we step into it. The script for Friends was placed on the table, like any other audition material. But when Matthew read it, something inside him recognized a reflection. The character of Chandler Bing wasn't just funny. He was awkward, self-deprecating, charming, and defensive, hiding pain behind sarcasm. Matthew didn't act Chandler. He was Chandler. He knew that loneliness. He knew that timing. He knew that hunger to make people laugh before they could get close enough to see what hurt. When he auditioned, the room didn't just watch him perform. They recognized him. There are stories in Hollywood about lightning strike moments. This was one. The producers looked at him and said, almost without needing to speak. There, that one, that's Chandler. No debate, no hesitation, no second actor considered. Matthew Perry had been chosen, and the world was about to meet him. Fame arrives like a storm when Friends first aired. Nobody expected what was coming, not the network, not the industry, not even the cast. But suddenly, billboards, magazines, late-night interviews, fans screaming on sidewalks, endorsements, paparazzi flashes like lightning. 6. Unknown actors turned into world icons. Overnight, the cast became family, or something close to it. But even inside that warmth, Matthew felt something unsettling. People weren't laughing with him. They were laughing at him, or laughing because of him, or laughing for him. But no one stayed after the laughter. No one saw the silence that came after the punchlines. Pain finds its opening. It happened after a small accident. Nothing dramatic, nothing memorable. The doctor handed him a prescription, just a few pills. For pain. Small, white tablets that seemed harmless, gentle, quiet, and comforting. They didn't just numb physical pain. They numbed the loneliness. They numbed the memories. They numbed the self-out. They numbed Matthew Perry. And for the first time in his life, the voice inside his head, the one that whispered "You're not enough," went quiet. He could breathe. He could rest. He could exist without hurting. And once a man tastes silence after a lifetime of internal screaming, he will do anything to feel it again. 2 lives begin from here on. Matthew Perry lived 2 realities. Reality 1. Matthew Perry, brilliant, sensitive, searching, breaking quietly. Reality 2. Chandler Bing, quick-witted, charming, effortlessly funny, always okay. The world adored Chandler. The world needed Chandler. But Matthew was fading behind him. He began taking pills to keep functioning, then pills to feel normal, then pills just to exist. And nobody knew. Not the cast, not the audience, not the world. Because addiction doesn't announce itself. It grows in silence, behind smiles, behind applause, behind laughter, behind some of the most iconic comedy moments in television history. There was a man holding himself together by a thread. And the cameras kept rolling. The live audience roared with laughter. Millions watched every week. People quoted Chandler in daily conversation. Chandler became a cultural echo everywhere, all the time. But when the director yelled cut, and the lights dimmed, Matthew would return home to a darkness that television could never fix. A darkness that pills were now starting to control. He wasn't taking them anymore, they were taking him. And the world still had no idea. On screen, Chandler was the heartbeat of laughter, sharp timing, perfect delivery, lines that echoed around the world. Could I be any more sarcastic? Crowds cheered, critics praised, millions adored him. But behind the camera, Matthew was disappearing in plain sight. Season after season, his body began to reveal what his words never did. His face changed first. The softness faded. The jaw sharpened in a way that didn't match youth. His eyes, once bright and quick, began to sink. Then his weight. Some seasons he was too thin, bones pressing against shirts, movements sharper, almost fragile. Other seasons he was bloated, swollen from medication and lack of control. His clothes stretched differently. His face rounded in ways that felt unfamiliar. People talked, but no one asked. Hollywood has a rule. If you are still performing, you must be fine. And Matthew always performed, even when he was dying inside. The cast noticed, but didn't know how to help. Jennifer saw it in the quiet moments. Courtney felt it in the pauses between takes. Matt LeBlanc watched him retreat inward. They loved him, truly. They were family in the strangest, most intimate sense. But addicts don't ask for help, they hide. And Matthew hid with the skill of a man who had been hiding since childhood. When anyone got close, he made a joke. A perfect joke. A disarming joke. The kind that makes people say, he's fine, he's just tired. But he wasn't tired. He was drowning. Every day. The pills became companions. He didn't count pills anymore. He counted hours until he could take the next one. They controlled his mornings. They shaped his afternoons. They decided his nights. He would wake with panic, swallow, escape, function, perform, entertain, collapse, repeat. The world saw Friends. The cast saw Chandler, but Matthew was alone with the one thing that understood him now. Addiction. It didn't judge. It didn't leave. It didn't abandon. It didn't ask him to be funny. It was comfort. It was silence. It was numbness. The same numbness he had been chasing since childhood. The audience laughed. He withered during table reads. He would tremble. Not visibly, but enough to feel it in his bones. Scripts blurred. Lines slipped. reality distorted. And yet, when the camera blinked on, something miraculous happened. Chandler appeared, every time. The timing was flawless. The rhythm untouched. The humor effortless. Matthew was gone. Chandler was alive. This is not performance. This is survival. But survival has a limit. There came a night when even the pills weren't enough. His body began to push back. Shakes, cold sweats, heart racing, vision dimming. Doctors intervened. Friends whispered. Executives worried about scheduled delays. Not the man dying in front of them. Hollywood doesn't rescue you. It uses you until you collapse. Then it rewrites the story to make your suffering look like your fault. And eventually, the collapse began. Rehab, relapse, rehab, relapse. His life became cycles of hope and heartbreak. He tried God. He tried. But addiction is not a battle of willpower. It is a disease that lives in your shadows, your wounds, your childhood, your loneliness. Matthew wasn't fighting pills. He was fighting the belief he learned as a child. You were not enough to stay for. And the tragedy of his life is this. No amount of fame, no amount of love, no amount of laughter ever erased that sentence. There came a time in Matthew's life where even he could not recognize himself. The eyes looking back at him in the mirror were not Chandler. Not the charming, quick-witted guy the world adored. They were empty, sunken, and haunted. He once said, "I felt like I was drowning, and everyone else was breathing perfectly fine." The pills had stopped being a choice. They had become the air he breathed. He woke up with them. He slept with them. He traveled with them. He hid them everywhere. Coat pockets, bathroom cabinets, gym bags, kitchen drawers, under car seats. He was living with a silent war that most people never survive. And Hollywood never cared. Hollywood only applauds your jokes, not your pain. During the peak of Friends, when the world thought he was living the dream, Matthew was dying inside. There were days he filmed entire episodes, and later admitted, "I don't remember shooting that season, because I was gone." He did not mean physically gone. He meant mentally erased by the addiction that was swallowing him whole. Millions laughed at his jokes. Millions quoted his lines. Millions loved him. But Matthew did not love himself. And slowly, very slowly, the world's laughter began to feel like mockery. Then came the breaking point. A hospital room, white lights, a flat expression on the surgeon's face. The doctors stood over him and said words that shattered everything. "Matthew, your colon has burst. You have a 2% chance to live." 2%. Even the doctors didn't lie to him. They didn't sugarcoat it. They told him to say goodbye. His family came. His loved ones came. People who had not spoken to him for years came. Because nobody believed he would survive. He was placed on a life support machine for weeks. His body was kept alive by wires and soundless machines. The world didn't know this happened. It didn't become headlines. No TMZ helicopters. No Twitter hashtags. Because not all tragedies are loud. Some are silent. Some happen behind hospital curtains, where the world cannot see. But Matthew survived. He wasn't supposed to. He wasn't predicted to. Even his doctors were stunned, but he came back. And when he woke up, he didn't celebrate. He didn't cry. He simply whispered, "Why am I still here?" Because living was not the victory yet. The war had just restarted. Matthew lived differently in his last years. He was older now, wiser, gentler. The world saw him show up in interviews, not as the funny guy, but as a man carrying truth in his voice. And when he spoke, people listened. Because this time, he wasn't acting. He talked openly about his addiction. He talked openly about the darkness. He talked openly about survival. He said, "I didn't beat it. I manage it, one day at a time." That one sentence told us everything. He was still fighting, but he was fighting with awareness now, not denial. He kept himself busy. He wrote, he met people, he laughed, real laughter, not the performance kind. He swam to calm his mind. He stayed in touch with friends who grounded him instead of idolizing him. And slowly, life didn't feel like a cage anymore. It felt like a balance. Not perfect, not healed, but balanced enough to live. His home became a sanctuary. Quiet, warm, controlled, safe. No loud parties. No chaos. No flashing cameras. Just peace. And that is what makes the final day so haunting. Because the day Matthew left this world did not feel like a tragedy waiting to happen. It felt calm. His assistant said he was happy that day. Relaxed, content. He had finished his morning routine. He played pickleball with friends. He laughed, joked, moved freely. He came home, took a warm bath, sent messages, played music. No alarms, no panic, no warning. Just quiet as if his life had finally reached a place where the noise stopped, as if the storm had finally gone still. And so, when he went to the water, the pool he loved, the place he said made him feel weightless, free from the heaviness of the world, he slipped into silence and never came back. The news broke like lightning. People didn't believe it. They couldn't help. Why now? He was doing better. He looked happy. The world had 1,000 questions, 1,000 theories, 1,000 assumptions. But the truth, nobody knows the exact moment the soul chooses to stop fighting. Sometimes peace can look like surrender. Sometimes water can feel safer than breathing. Sometimes the quiet is heavier than the noise. His death was ruled an accident. But the emotional story, the unanswered question, was Matthew truly free at the end? Or was he just tired? No one can say except him. Matthew Perry did not want to be remembered only as Chandler Bing. He loved the character. He cherished the laughter. He understood the cultural impact. But he once said something that revealed the very core of his soul. When I die, I don't want friends to be the first thing that's mentioned. I want to be remembered as someone who helped others. And he meant it. Everything he endured. The addiction, the collapse, the recovery, the relapse, the shame, the rebuilding, it all shaped the way he looked at others who were suffering. He knew what pain looked like behind smiling eyes. He knew how to recognize the tremor in someone's hands. He knew how to hear the silent cry in a casual sentence. Because he had lived all of it. So he spoke to others, not from a stage, not with polished advice, not with scripted lines, but with understanding. He sat with broken people and said, "Your story doesn't end here." He stood beside the lost and whispered, "There is still a you worth saving." He grabbed the hands of those drowning in their own darkness and said, "I know the ocean. I have been swallowed by it. But I also know that you can swim back." This was his real work, his real contribution, his real legacy. Not fame, not sitcoms, not late-night talk show interviews, but human lives, quietly, privately, without cameras, without applause. There are people alive today who would not be here if Matthew Perry had not looked at them and said, "You matter, stay." That is more powerful than any award, more meaningful than any role, more timeless than any character. Matthew Perry was not a tragedy. He was a testament to endurance, to survival, to the brutal beauty of fighting your demons every single day. His life was not defined by the darkness. He battled out. His life was defined by the light he kept trying to return to. Even when the waves drowned him, even when the world misunderstood him, even when the pain became heavy, he still tried. And that is the most human thing anyone can do. Some storms never completely leave us. Some wars remain inside us. Long after the world thinks we've won, Matthew Perry did not lose. He fought, every day. And in that fight, in that persistence, there is a lesson for everyone who has ever felt lost. You are still here. And as long as you are here, your story is not over. In the end, life is not measured by the moments we laughed the loudest, or the roles we played in front of the world. It's measured by the quiet battles no one sees. The nights, when we choose to keep going. The mornings we rise when everything inside us says we can _T. That Matthew Perry story is not just about fame, addiction, or tragedy. It is about being human, deeply, painfully, beautifully human. He showed us that even those who make the world laugh can be fighting storms no one understands. He showed us that survival is not glamorous. It is messy. It is exhausting. It is courageous. And most importantly, he showed us that helping others matters. Because every kind word, every moment of honesty, every hand extended to someone struggling, can become the reason they choose to stay. So if you are listening to this right now, and you feel tired, or lost, or unseen, remember Matthew's message. You are still here, your story is still unfolding, and there is still time to choose the light again.